Hello, my name is Sean Tremolin. I'm the Ag Agent here in Scott County, and today we're going to talk about ornamental gardens and how to get them started. First step with the garden is to go ahead and plan it out. And so start thinking about, get a piece of paper, grid paper works great, and map out your area, so the dimensions of it, so then you can see how plants fit in. Think about what size they're going to be at when they're mature, so then things aren't overcrowded. Think about what do you want to plant there. Do you want to have a focus on pollinators? Do you want to have only native plants? Do you just want to go ahead and start putting in your favorite plants? That's all fine. Just go ahead and put it down on a piece of paper, so then you kind of have that map and see if it fits. Start thinking about what area you're going to work in, what kind of amendments need to be made there. If it's poorly drained, working on getting better drainage in. Maybe you need to go ahead and kill turf grass if you're ripping up part of your lawn to put in a garden, or maybe suppressing other weeds, stuff like that. Also thinking about what plants you want to put there and having that right plant, right place mindset, so then you're not fighting that uphill battle. And then also what kind of requirements those plants need, whether you want to plant things like annuals versus perennials. And so if you do this first step, then that's going to help out throughout the whole process.
Now that we have a plan for our garden, the next step is to start looking at the planting site and preparing it. And so, first step is look at the soil. Now, Scott County, there's a lot of different types of soil. You can have heavy clay, you can have heavy sand, you can have only an inch of soil with bedrock. So there's a lot of variations. So look at your soil and see how the drainage is. If there's poor drainage, then you're going to potentially have waterlogged soil, which then can suffocate the root systems and kill plants. If you have quick drainage from like maybe having heavy sand, then there's not going to be as much water retention, and it may have drought scenarios for your plants. And so that's one where just kind of look at what you have. If you have really heavy soil, you can work on trying to break it apart, break that hard packed soil apart, several inches down into the soil, and that'll help with drainage. You can also have a little bit of a slope, though you want to be careful because that can lead to erosion. Um, you can also have raised beds. If you have really hard soil or you have bedrock or rock structures fairly close up, you can just have a raised bed, and that will help promote drainage. It's also important to look at soil tests, and so I have on this channel a great video talking about how to take a soil test, but that's going to go ahead and tell you all of the nutrients, the pH, anything that needs to be amended will come from that, and it's a small cost, and it's going to be the best way to prevent headaches down the line. So go ahead and prepare the soil, maybe break up soil to help with drainage, or also just to remove weed pressure. You can go ahead and till your soil, and that's one where it's going to go ahead and help break up if it's heavy soils, break it up, help aerate it, and make it easier to plant. Though you don't have to till, there are pros and cons to it. You are affecting the soil structure, and may not, and you may also be mixing in weed seeds from lower down in the soil bed. So there are pros and cons to it. You don't have to till. You can go ahead and uh, suppress and kill weeds by covering them with mulches, cardboard, newspaper. That's great if you plan to go ahead and get started in the future. So go ahead and lay down an area to go ahead and start killing the grass or weeds. You can also, more than just cardboard and newspaper, you can use plastics to solarize. But anyways, something to go ahead and start killing the weeds off and preparing the beds so you can easily plant in will be a great next step. Then also on top of that, you'll want to mix in organic material to your bed, and so that's one where organic material is just going to improve your garden bed on multiple ways. It'll go ahead and help with breaking up the soil in a positive way. So that's one where I know that, for example, in gardens that I have, there's a lot of clay, and so by adding an organic material, you're helping break up and add in some more pore space into your beds. That'll help with drainage. That'll help with the roots being able to access it. It'll go ahead and increase soil health. And so you can see here is where I'm tilling in some organic material. You can use a lot of different things. You can compost uh, all kinds of different materials. You can use stuff like peat moss. Um, Whatever the case is, it's going to be great. Now it's one where this is not replacing adding fertilizers. And so that's one where it's important to use information from your soil test to see what kind of fertilizer amendments you need to make. As you're thinking about what flowers or plants you plan to put into your gardens, you can also consider, do you want annual versus perennial flowers? And so there's different characteristics each kind. They both have their places. Annual flowers are ones that'll go ahead and complete their whole full life cycle in 1 year, meaning that they'll go from seed, foliage, flower, produce seeds, and then die all in 1 year. So that's when they tend to have long, showy, season-long color, but you're going to have to replant them each year. On the other hand, you can have perennial flowers that live, depending on the species, 3 years or more, and that's one where they will go ahead and live longer periods. They have a lot of different colors, textures, and sizes, but you do not have as long of a bloom season. So that's one where they generally are shorter, maybe to spring, summer, fall. Now that's one where you can go ahead and incorporate multiple perennial plants into your beds so you have colors all season, or you don't have to choose one or the other. You can go ahead and choose and have a mixture of both annuals and perennials. So you have the perennials that will go ahead and be there season long, maybe adding some foliage, looks and colors along with their blooms during their season, and then have annuals in to have that pop of season long color. The next step is looking at what your site qualities are and seeing what plants will work well there. Now, of course, you can go ahead and go through the process of amending the soil to go ahead and, for example, if there's a plant that just really cannot tolerate uh, a wet soil, you can go ahead and you can amend that. You can have raised beds, but one practice that we like to encourage is what's called right plant, right place. And so that's just looking at plants and tailoring them, picking plants that are tailored to the area. And so that can be by just figuring out what kind of sun, water, and other qualities your site has, and then using plants that fit well in there, so you don't have to fight that uphill battle. Um, and there's a lot of great plants that are native, and in the description down below I will include a link to a great resource where you can search native plants of all kinds, flowers, trees, shrubs, grasses, so on, and they'll tell you a little bit about the native plants, what conditions for the site they like, and then any other descriptive information. So as you're planting, I like to go ahead and lay out the garden, and so you just go ahead and take all your plants in their pots and lay them in the garden to kind of see how it's going to look in the end. See if that's one where maybe things look a little bit crowded, or maybe you realize you have holes. And that's one where you have to be careful. As you can see in the corners here, those peonies will go ahead and expand out. So remember to look at your plants and see what kind of space requirements they have, because there's nothing worse than spending all this time and then ending up having plants shade out each other just because they were put too close together. So as you're planting the flowers, that's important to have the preparation for the bed, and so it's one where by going through and tilling, that's helping break up the soil and make it so the roots can have a nice established um, uh, chance, and then also to have rapid root growth. Now, if you're planting individual holes, especially if you're putting a tree or shrub here and there, that's one where you're going to have the same kind of method of putting more work into the planting hole. There's the old adage of never put a $10 tree in a $2 hole. And so you're going to want to have that hole at least twice as wide as the root ball. And that's just going to, as I said before, encourage rapid root growth and help the plant establish itself. And then you do not want to dig it too deep. You want to go ahead and have the root ball about level with the soil surface. And that's one where if you go ahead and put it down too low, then you're going to go ahead and increase chances for rot and getting your plant off to a bad start. Um, as you're planting them in, you'll want to go ahead and make sure to put the soil, backfill it in, make sure there's no air pockets. So go ahead and, place your hand or your foot gently to go ahead and press the soil down around. You just don't have any air pockets underneath. You want to make sure the soil gets settled as much as can. You may need to come back afterwards and add a little bit more soil if it's settled down, just to make sure that it's nice and level with the rest of the bed. Do not forget to go ahead and water your plants, so make sure that they have access to water and get started off on the right foot.
Once you have your plants planted, then it's important to start thinking about how to take care of them. And so once you have them planted and watered well, then thinking about mulches. And so mulches are useful for multiple reasons. They will go ahead and suppress weeds, and so the less competition that your plants have, the better. They will then be able to get more moisture, more nutrients, won't be shaded out. And so weed suppression is important, but then also it'll help maintain moisture, especially as we get into the dry months coming up in July, August. Having mulches will help keep some of that moisture in and won't dehydrate and evaporate off. It'll also go ahead and help moderate the temperature so there's less extremes both ways, both either colder or warmer. And then also it'll help stabilize your soil. And that's important just to help prevent erosion. Of course, in Scott County, there's a lot of ups and downs. And so it's important to think about stabilizing your soil so you have less erosion, less runoff into our water systems. And so here you can see that we used organic material. And so we have wood chips on top, but then also if you look underneath, there's newspaper. And so the newspaper is our first layer, and that helps because these are new beds. They were just originally turf grass, and so having that newspaper and then wood chips on top will help suppress the weeds. So then we'll go ahead and kill off any of the grass that didn't get killed during the tilling process. And then it'll also go ahead and degrade over time, both the newspaper and wood chips, so then you will have new organic material added into your garden. And those are some of the reasons why we prefer organic over inorganic. You can get some inorganic mulches. You have to be careful if you do choose to do that to make sure you have permeable, because you want to have water and air being able to move back and forth between the soil. But then with inorganic mulches, you'll have over time they will fail. They will not degrade, but weeds will break through, and they just will not add anything to the soil health over time.
And congratulations, now you have your ornamental bed created. Just remember that as you go through the next 6 to 8 weeks, you'll want to make sure to keep watering your plants. You don't want to overwater them, but you want to make sure to keep the root systems moist, and that will help allow them to get established and off on the right foot. Depends on what you planted. As for how often, trees and shrubs may only need twice a week, but then annuals and some ground covers could need daily watering. So just make sure to use the soil moisture feel down in your bed to see how everything is, and allow that to guide you and how much water they need. Thanks for watching this video, and if you have any questions, always happy for you to reach out to the office. You can see this is my contact information. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you next time.